Hello and welcome once again to the Thrifty Collector. Today, something a little bit different. I went ahead and bought a box set of Yes CDs on Amazon. I paid a little bit less than $16 for these. And there's 5 CDs on here, and it pretty much goes from the late 70s to about the late 80s, about 87. So these albums are all different from each other. In some retrospect, there are really 3 different bands that played on these albums. And the reason why I say that, and I'll go over it more, is the fact that the first 2 albums had all the same characters. The middle album had a big lineup change, and then the last 2 had a big lineup change. And most people probably know Yes from Roundabout, or I've Seen All Good People. If you're kind of in the Yes like I am, you've kind of gone back and listened to a lot of the other albums like Fragile, the Yes album, which were all great albums. And so we're going to go over these. I'm going to open them up. I'm going to talk about each album just a little bit, and we'll see what was going on with these. The funny thing is I already had 2 of these albums on CD, and but they were the remastered ones. It had a bunch of bonus tracks on them, and one of them I actually have on record. So I picked up the record, I think, at a yard sale that I was going to. So we're going to do a little unboxing here, and so this is the case, as you can see. Now these are, as far as I can tell, not the remastered versions, because it doesn't look like there's any extra songs on here, which if there were, it would probably read that. So we're going to go over these. The first one we're going to go over is Going for the One, and kind of a unique kind of album cover there. And this one came out, I believe this was 1977. I'm almost sure it's 1977, give or take a year. This was kind of a great time for Yes in some ways and not. If you're not into Yes, or if you just know from those other songs, they are known for very long songs. They are prog rock, which is short for progressive rock. So basically, they can do an album, a full album, and have 5, 6 songs on them at the most. This one actually has 5. So the really great songs on this album are the title track, Going for the One, and I absolutely love Parallels. Steve Howe's guitar work on Parallels is absolutely amazing. So what you have on this album is you had John Anderson, Steve Howe, Chris Squire, who was Yes, and I'll go into that for a second, and you also had Alan White and Rick Wakeman, the great Rick Wakeman on this album. If you've never heard this album, it's a great album. There's 2 of the songs are kind of a little bit more of their slower stuff, but Parallels and Going for the One are just 2 great tracks. So we have that. This is one of the ones that I do have on the remastered with a bunch of bonus tracks on it. This is a great album if you're going to get into Yes. After you get the Yes album, after you get Fragile, I would recommend this one for the 70s version of Yes. The next album is Tormato. Over here. So, like Tornado, but with tomatoes, I guess you could say. I've only listened to this album probably 3 or 4 times. Very good album. I like it a lot. So you have Steve Howe, looks like John Anderson, Alan White, Rick Wakeman, and is that Chris Squire? I don't know. It's hard to tell. But Chris Squire, up until his death, was the only person that played on every Yes album. So Tormato, like I said, I've listened to this one maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's a very good album. Nothing really kind of stands out. And I know I might get a comment saying, well, what about this song? What about this song? Maybe I'm just not there yet. When you go back to the Going for the One album, the way that the title track starts off, it's almost like a rockabilly kind of feel. And then it kind of gets right into Yes. So I just, with the Tormato, I just never really got that. Maybe I just need to listen to it some more. The next album, now that was group number 1, those 2 albums. This is group number 3. And I am not a big fan of this album. This is Chris Squire, Steve Howe, Alan White, the core, and then they actually brought in the Bungles. So Trevor Horn, and I can't remember the other guy's name, they brought them in to replace John Anderson and Rick Wakeman. To me, this sounds like a Bungles album with a really, really good backup band. Into the Lens was the single on it. It didn't do much for me. Actually, the whole album never really did much for me. And I don't know if it's just too Bungles for me. And if you're wondering who the Bungles are, they were Video Killed the Radio Star guys. So basically what happened, the singer, John Anderson, the keyboardist, Rick Wakeman left. They brought in the Bungles to kind of fill in, and they put out this one album, Drama. Even the cover. I mean, the cover's kind of cool, and then I don't know why you have, like, looks like cats, but maybe there's something to that. There's the back. But just really doesn't do it for me. I can't quite call it the shits, but it could be kind of darn close. And maybe because I said it just sounds too much like the Bungles to me. Now, they, yes, had a big turnover in their band, and out was Rick Wakeman, and so you had Chris Squire, Alan White, and this young South African guy, Trevor Rabin. I think that's how you pronounce his name correctly. Trevor came in, he had a bunch of almost like poppy songs, and they totally changed their sound. This is 90125. This is the album that changed it for Yes. They brought back Tony Kaye, the keyboardist who left on after the Yes album. And if you see the Yes album, they're kind of all almost in a corner, and Tony's sitting on a chair with a broken foot because he had broken his foot. The interesting thing about this group was not supposed to be Yes. They were supposed to be called Cinema. And at the last moment, John Anderson came back, and Trevor Rabin said, "I've got this song, Owner of a Lonely Heart." And Anderson kind of tweaked it a little bit because he's a genius when it does come to vocals. And then you had Owner of a Lonely Heart. So some of the other songs on here, Leave It, It Could Happen. And there is probably what you would call the closest thing to a heavy metal song that Yes ever did, which was City of Love. It's the second from the last song, and it's just a great, hard-thumping rock song. I remember when I first bought this, and you kind of had Owner of a Lonely Heart, which was huge, had that great guitar solo in it. And then you flip it over, you listen to 1 or 2 songs, and then City of Love comes on, and you're like, wow, these guys are rocking. So this would be, after you get the Yes album and Fragile, I would recommend getting this. It sounds quite a bit different than this. And so I really I love 90125. I've got the remastered version of this, and I could listen to this every day, all day. Kind of like the Yes album or Fragile. And then the last, I forgot to put it over. And then the last here, and you can see they actually went up to 9 songs on this. So this was definitely got them away from that whole prog rock where that they were known for, where the Drama album, the album before, only had 6 songs. Also, I forgot to throw this in, with the 5th song, Cinema, is actually an instrumental that was done before John Anderson came back, but they actually won a Grammy on it, so Best Instrumental on it. So great instrumental, but Changes, great song, It Can Happen, Hold On, Owner of a Lonely Heart, City of Love, Leave It. And on the remastered edition of this album, Leave It, they take out all the music and they call it the a cappella version. So it's kind of interesting. And then the last one is Yes, Big Generator. And I believe this came out in 87. Yes, 87, because I bought this when I was in tech school, when I was in the Air Force. And this one had a couple songs that made it. It was Rhythm of Love. Love Will Find a Way is a great song. And Big Generator, I love Aim High, Shoot Low. That's more of a proggy kind of sound. So they did go a little bit back into the prog, a little bit, but it's still more of a commercial album like 90125, more than, which of course Drama wasn't at all a commercial album. So Big Generator, and I didn't even take these out, but so yeah. So if you've always said, hey, I've heard Owner of a Lonely Heart. If you get the other albums, none of them really sound anything like it except for this one, Big Generator, because this had the same band from 90125. And then it's kind of interesting. It gets kind of that whole Yes lore of musicians coming in and out. Anderson, Bruford, who was the original drummer, Wakeman and Howe, put out an album. But they didn't put out it as the Yes album because Chris Squire wasn't part of it. It was kind of like that British gentleman agreement where it would never be called a Yes album, or they wouldn't call themselves Yes playing unless Squire was in the band. And unfortunately, Chris died about 10 years ago. So I hope you enjoyed this review. You can pick this up if you got a nice long trip. The amazing thing is that the albums do not sound the same. You'll see kind of the big difference from going from the one to Big Generator. Sound completely different, which is rare, but there was quite a bit of different influences. One of the things with the other albums besides 90125 and Big Generator, Steve Howe's more of that kind of a classical, everything is perfect guitar, perfect sounding, and Trevor was more of a pop shredder kind of sound. So even the guitars are just totally apart from each other. But there is a live concert video of City of Love. It was somewhere in Germany, and it's I think it's about 8-9 minutes long, but absolutely amazing version of City of Love. As you can tell, that's probably up there as my favorite Yes song, which I know everybody from before 90125 would call blasphemy, but and I do love Starship Trooper. I guess I could just keep going on and on and on about Starship Trooper, or Yours Is No Disgrace, or I've Seen All Good People. So check these out, and if you want to check it out, and if you're going to go on a long trip, buy the box set. Put it in. You can kind of see all the different sounds and all the different wonderful lyrics that were done during these particular Yes years. So I hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait to pop this in the CD and the Fox body. Get going with it, and everybody have a wonderful day.